All right, let's dive into something pretty cool today. Fluency. And not just the surface stuff. We're going deep. We're looking at an episode from the English Learning Podcast called Think Smart, Speak Fluent.
Yeah, and the best part is that it's relevant to everyone. It's really about how we think and how that impacts how well we communicate.
Exactly. So they start off with this brain highway analogy.
Oh, yeah, I love that. It really paints a picture of how organization is key for smooth talking.
Like if your thoughts are organized, words can just flow out, no problem.
Exactly, like cars on an open highway, smooth sailing. But if your thoughts are all jumbled, it's like hitting a traffic jam up there? Makes it tough to get the words out.
Makes total sense. And then they go on to say, forget translating from your native language. It actually hurts your fluency.
Yeah, they're saying that translation adds an extra step in the process. It's like putting a speed bump right in the middle of your thought process.
And can make you sound a little unnatural too, right?
Right. Because you're not thinking in English directly, you're sort of forcing it to fit the mold of your native language.
So what they're saying is, think directly in English.
Cut out that middleman. Train your brain to just form the thoughts in English from the get-go.
And they say that helps you communicate faster and more naturally.
For sure. It's like you're building a direct line from your thoughts to your words.
They even listed out some benefits like saving time and boosting confidence.
Confidence is huge if you're not constantly second-guessing yourself. You can actually focus on the conversation itself.
Makes sense. Let's talk strategies. What do they recommend for thinking smart in English?
I was actually surprised at how simple their first tip was. They say, start simple.
Like how simple are we talking?
They give this great example. Instead of trying to form these super long, complicated sentences, just think in small chunks like, this is coffee, it's hot, I like coffee.
So basically baby steps.
Pretty much. You're giving your brain time to adjust to thinking in English without overwhelming it. It's about building that foundation.
It's like you're laying the groundwork, brick by brick, for more complex stuff later on.
Totally. You gotta crawl before you can walk, right?
Right. Another technique they mentioned was associating words with visuals or feelings.
Yeah. It's more than just rote memorization. It's about building a connection with the word.
So like instead of just remembering the dictionary definition of happy, maybe you picture a really happy memory you have.
Makes the word stick in your mind so much better, and you can recall it more easily, too.
It's like embedding the word into your brain with an image or a feeling.
Makes it so much more personal.
They had a bunch of other tips too, like narrating your day in English, listening super carefully to how native speakers talk.
I love that one. Mindful listening. It's like you're tuning into the music of the language, picking up the rhythm, the intonation.
And even just asking yourself simple questions throughout the day in English.
Keeps your brain engaged with the language, even when you're not actively having a conversation.
So we've covered thinking smart. What about actually speaking fluently?
Well, they make a point of saying fluency isn't about speed.
It's not about being a speed demon then.
Not at all. They define it as clarity, naturalness, and confidence.
So it's more about how effectively you communicate, how natural you sound?
Exactly. It's about connecting with the person you're talking to, not just how many words you can cram into a sentence.
And they actually highlight the importance of pauses.
Pauses are so important. Those little breaks give you time to collect your thoughts, and it makes your speech way easier for other people to understand.
Like punctuation for spoken language.
Exactly. And once again, ditch the mental translation habit.
Right, we're really breaking that habit today.
It's a real fluency killer. If you can't think of a specific word, they say just use a simpler word or even a gesture.
So it's more important to keep the conversation going than to get stuck searching for the perfect word.
Exactly. And if you're really struggling, they have this tip where you describe the word instead of getting hung up on it.
So like, if you can't remember the word screwdriver, you might say, the tool you use to turn screws.
Exactly. It keeps things moving.
Smart. What other strategies do they have for speaking fluently? They mentioned starting with basic sentences, practicing every day, even if it's just talking to yourself.
I love the idea of shadowing. It's where you listen to a native speaker and try to imitate their pronunciation, their rhythm, everything.
It's like borrowing their voice for a little while.
Yeah. It's super helpful for improving your pronunciation and getting that natural flow.
And they also stress the importance of embracing mistakes.
Yeah, they really hammered that home. Mistakes are part of the process.
They actually said the more mistakes you make, the more you learn.
Because each mistake is an opportunity to learn and improve.
Makes sense. They even suggested keeping a mistake journal. to
Mhm.
track those errors and really learn from them.
Yeah, it's about turning those slip-ups into learning moments. And, they talk about recording yourself, too.
Which can be a little awkward at first, but I can see how it would be helpful.
You can hear things you might not notice otherwise, like patterns in your pronunciation or grammar.
And they ended with this really nice point about celebrating those small wins.
Every little victory counts, right? It keeps you motivated and shows you that you're making progress.
Now let's talk about the grand finale, the 1-minute challenge.
I'm intrigued. What is this challenge all about?
So you pick any topic, set a timer for 1 minute, and just talk in English for the whole minute, nonstop.
Whoa, that's a real fluency boot camp.
It is. And they said, don't stress about mistakes, use fillers, start simple, and gradually add complexity as you go.
It's like a test run for real-life conversations.
And they even suggested recording yourself during the challenge.
So you can go back and analyze how you did, see where you can improve.
It's like having your own personal fluency coach.
And they ended the episode on a really encouraging note, saying fluency is an ongoing journey.
It's not about reaching some finish line. It's about constant growth and improvement.
And every little effort we make, whether it's thinking in simple English or embracing those mistakes, contributes to that growth. It's a journey, for sure. It's all about the little things we do consistently. They really make a difference over time.
Speaking of little things, I really liked that idea of narrating your day, just in English.
It sounds so simple, but I can see how it would get your brain thinking in English more naturally.
It's like instead of just going through your day on autopilot, you're actually thinking about what you're doing, but in English.
Right. It's like giving yourself a little English immersion course, right, in your own life.
And you don't even have to speak out loud for that, do you?
Nope, you can totally do it silently, all in your head. Like instead of thinking, I need to go to the store, you could think, I need to go to the supermarket.
It's like a little mental workout, but for your English.
Exactly. And they even suggest setting aside specific times each day just for English thinking.
Like building that mental muscle.
Yep. And that actually leads to another point they made, practicing with purpose.
So what's that all about? Purposeful practice.
Well, it's about being intentional. Instead of just passively taking in English content, figure out what you specifically want to improve and focus your practice on that.
So, like, if I'm having trouble with pronunciation, I might do more of those shadowing exercises.
Exactly. Or if you want to learn more words, maybe you read articles about things you're interested in.
Makes a lot of sense, actually. It's not just about the time you spend practicing. It's about making that time count.
Quality over quantity. And speaking of important points, remember how much they talked about embracing mistakes?
Oh, yeah, they really drove that point home. I think it's because a lot of people get scared to make mistakes when they're learning.
It's totally natural to feel that way, but the truth is, mistakes are how we learn.
They even said the more mistakes you make, the more you learn.
Because each mistake is like a little lesson. It shows you what you need to work on.
And remember that tip about keeping a mistake journal.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Writing down your mistakes helps you really remember them and learn from them.
It's like you're turning those mistakes into something useful instead of just letting them slip by.
Exactly. They also get into some interesting stuff about how our brains learn languages.
Like the science behind it.
Yeah. They talk about neuroplasticity, which is basically the brain's ability to change and adapt throughout our lives.
So even though we might think of language learning as something we do in school, our brains are actually designed to keep learning languages forever.
That's so cool. And when we practice English consistently, we're actually rewiring our brains to become more fluent.
They even compared it to building muscle.
Yeah. Just like lifting weights makes your muscles stronger, practicing English strengthens the parts of your brain that deal with language.
Wow, I never thought of it that way. So it's not about being born with some kind of language gene. It's about putting in the work.
You got it. And they talked about consistency being key.
So those short, frequent practice sessions are better than trying to cram it all in at once.
Exactly. It's about making English a part of your daily routine, even if it's just for a few minutes each day.
Like finding little ways to sneak it in.
Right. Maybe you listen to an English podcast on your way to work, or read an English article during your lunch break.
It's like finding those little pockets of time where you can fit in some practice.
Exactly. And this next point is super important. Find resources and things to do that you actually enjoy.
Because if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to stick with it.
Right. Exactly. They recommend trying different things until you find what works for you. Some people like structured lessons. Others prefer watching movies or listening to music.
It's about making it fun
And maybe even finding a language partner or joining a group so you can practice with other people.
I love that. It makes language learning a more social thing, too.
It does. And then, to wrap things up, they talk about the importance of being kind to yourself.
Self-compassion.
Yep. They say language learning is a journey, not a race. It's about enjoying the process, being proud of how far you've come, and not being too hard on yourself when you make mistakes.
Because everybody makes mistakes, even native speakers.
Right. So don't be afraid to try new things, to experiment, to make mistakes. It's all part of the learning process.
And it's important to remember that everyone learns at their own pace. There's no need to compare yourself to others.
Focus on your own progress and celebrate those victories, big and small. You know, this episode makes me think that it's about so much more than just learning English.
It's about growing as a person, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about having a positive attitude, embracing challenges, and constantly learning.
And those are qualities that can help you in all aspects of your life.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are some of the things that have really resonated with you?
What stood out to you as particularly helpful or interesting?
We talked about a lot of different things, from practical tips to some deeper reflections on the whole learning process itself. What are you most curious about?
I think the thing that resonated the most with me was that emphasis on mindset. You know, it's so easy to get caught up in the end goal of being fluent that you get discouraged by the little setbacks along the way.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And I love how they talked about enjoying the journey, celebrating the small victories, and not beating yourself up over mistakes.
And finding those resources and activities that you genuinely like, the things that make learning fun for you.
Absolutely. Which actually brings us back to that 1-minute challenge. It's such a cool way to practice thinking and speaking in English at the same time.
Yeah, and remember they said, don't worry too much about making mistakes or anything like that. Just focus on expressing yourself.
Use those fillers if you need them. Start simple and then build up from there. It's all about building that fluency muscle.
And don't forget about recording yourself if you're comfortable with that. It's a great way to track your progress and see where you can improve.
It's like having your own personal coach giving you feedback. You can literally hear yourself getting better over time.
And that can be super motivating to see how far you've come.
It's all about building that momentum. And, you know, fluency isn't just a destination you reach. It's a lifelong journey.
I even said that the more fluent you become, the more you realize there's still more to learn.
It's like a never-ending adventure. And the further you go, the more possibilities open up for you.
Speaking of possibilities, I really liked how they talked about the social side of language learning. It's not just about studying alone, it's about connecting with other people.
Exactly. They even recommend finding a language partner or joining one of those language exchange groups.
That way you can practice your speaking skills with real people and maybe even make some new friends along the way.
And it really highlights how language is about so much more than just words and grammar. It's a way to connect with people from different cultures and broaden your horizons.
It's like opening a window to a whole new world.
Exactly. And you know, this whole episode has me thinking that learning a language is about so much more than just the language itself.
It's about personal growth too, right?
Yeah, it's about challenging yourself and stepping outside of your comfort zone. It's about expanding your worldview and connecting with people from all walks of life.
And those are skills that can help you in all areas of your life, not just when you're speaking English.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Think Smart, Speak Fluent, what are you taking away from it?
What one small action are you going to take today to get a little bit closer to fluency?
It could be something as simple as labeling a few things around your house in English, or even just noticing the English words you encounter throughout your day.
Every little bit counts.
So keep practicing, keep experimenting, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself.
You got this.